of Jesus' first public appearance. And what's the first thing he does? He doesn't call a prayer meeting. No, but he celebrates and makes over 180 gallons of wine for a wedding on the third day of the wedding. Now that had to be some party and celebration. And so the gospel reminds us that when Jesus is on the scene, anything can happen. Have you ever wondered what our normal, everyday life would be like if we really believed that God was with us every minute, every hour, and every day? For us who follow the winemaker, we're reminded of God's generosity, God's extravagant care, and that God's love overflows into our lives if we allow it gallon and gallon and gallon. There's just no limit. But we have spent a lot of time in the church reminding everyone about their sinfulness and what is lacking in their lives. But Jesus tells us again and again that religion's main purpose is not about instilling fear and damnation and lack of self-esteem. He lives his life showing us that we are graced, cared for, forgiven, and loved. In fact, our Holy Father Francis just recently said, we have to put mercy before judgment. And so what we have to be able to do is change our agenda. Jesus not only looked like grace, but Jesus is grace in our lives. You remember the story of the prodigal son? The father never gives up on his wayward son. The lost son, the one who absolutely wasted everything. Father doesn't give up. Pretty extravagant. Or the worker who came to work late in the vineyard and got a whole day's wage. Pretty generous. Or about Zacchaeus, little Zacchaeus, the tax collector who was ripping off all the people all the time. What does Jesus do? He goes to his house and visits and eats. Pretty caring. Or the woman caught in adultery. Jesus reaches out, lifts her up out of the dirt, and safe from the crowds who are ready to just stone her to death. Pretty forgiving. And then Jesus reached out and touched and healed a leper. Pretty risky. And our Holy Father just recently again says he did not sit down, Jesus did not sit down at a desk and study the situation. He did consult the experts for the pros and cons. What really mattered to him was reaching the stranded people and their lives and saving them. And we're supposed to imitate God. All of us. To imitate God in our generosity, in our extravagance, in our excess. It's about quantity and quality in our lives. Jesus takes those empty jars and he fills them with the best wine. That's about quantity and quality. They were filled to the brim. Now, if he can do this with empty jars, think what he can do with us. Even when we're running on empty. And we all know what that's like sometimes, don't we? Or filled with old sour wine of prejudice and discrimination and fear and scarcity and resentment, all that diminish the quality of our lives each and every day. So when you leave here today, I need you to remember that there are so many lives out there that are empty vessels. And they need to be filled with the joy of God, the healing presence of God, the richness of God's presence. And they need to be able to reach up, and they need to be able to celebrate that life that God offers to each and every one. But we need to show them by the quantity and the quality of our lives what grace really looks like.